Grand Finals of the Battlegrounds 2014. Our first player in the bottom left position, the blue Terran, the new kid on the block from Jin Air Green Wings. He is Cure.
The new kid against the veteran. This man, Red Bull's very own Bomber.
We've seen a nice amount of Terran versus Terran today, Rotterdam. If there's one advantage that Cure has going into this series, it's that he just got 5 game full of Terran versus Terran to watch of Bomber, as he was able to defeat Polt, but it didn't come that easily to him.
Now, of course, he was able to watch that series, but then again, Bomber has a lot of variety in his playstyle, and he's also such a unique player. I think this is something that Cure has to remember throughout the entire series. Expect the unexpected from Bomber, because he is not your ordinary player, especially in this day and age of StarCraft 2.
Yeah, I think make a very good point. To kick off the series, Bomber played very passive, very economic openings against Polt in the first 2 games that he won, and even going into the third match. So on this series, he's immediately going out the gate with the gas first. Both players are going to open with very quick factories. There's the potential for a really explosive start, and being cross-spawn Nimbus, you have about as much space as possible between 2 players in the current map pool, which means it's going to be interesting. You have aggressive builds, but long distances for both.
The polls are still running as well, even throughout the finals. And as you guys can see, this is the first poll that is up. You guys can head over to redbullbattlegrounds.com to vote. Who do you think will be the Red Bull Battlegrounds Grand Finals champion? So far, it seems like the majority of the people here and the majority of the people at home think that Bomber is going to take it all, Nate. Well, it would be a beautiful story. It would be amazing for Bomber. Probably one of the victories that will mean the most to him.
Yeah, it's been a good year for Bomber, but he is not done just yet. Would be a great first individual victory as far as tournaments go for Cure. And I think either way, it'll be hard to be disappointed with the results as long as we have some really good games, which both of these guys are definitely going to give us.
Yep, the starport is already going down for Bomber as his first Widowmine is in production as well. No starport yet for Cure, but he is starting off to produce some Hellions, Nate.
So there was a period of time where Gas First was popular, but I started to talk about how during online, these Reaper openings off of Gas First were a bit unusual for Cure. Then more players started to do it, and now Cure is actually going double Reaper with the Hellion coming across the map. He's picked a build that gives him an unusual amount of steadfast units that don't die very easily because you have the fast Hellions, you have the Reapers with their regeneration, and suddenly it's just a hell of a lot of pressure being brought to Bomber's base.
Yeah, it's a little bit of pressure. I don't think Bomber is sweating it just yet. Now the Hellion shows up and Bomber is like, alright, then I want to be careful because there is a lot of micro potential in the Reaper, in the Hellion. Bomber decides to move out when he has access to his own Hellion. He, of course,
this.
Yeah, he still has that Widowmine as well. Let's not forget about that bad boy.
Yeah, that Widowmine is important to having a good spot to lock this down. The follow-up for both of these players, the Medevac's about to finish for Bomber. He's even getting an engineering bay. Oh, well,
what?
You know, that's not your standard engineering bay placement, Rotterdam.
Since when does that work, Nate? What do you get out of that? Oh, at the same time, we see that Cure is just going to bomb rush up this ramp, but so far it seems like Bomber had his units in the right position.
Medevac does a fantastic job, and this is a nightmare scenario for Cure.
This is terrible.
This usually doesn't happen. You're like, okay, there's an SCV here. I'm going to have a unit to save this, but now he has to build the Viking instead of the Banshee. This gives Bomber so much time to prepare. You don't have to sweat it at all.
Now, Bomber might not even expect that this is coming anymore. That's how late it is going to arrive, which maybe in a weird way will work out for Cure. But like you said, Bomber has done a great job in slowing this down. And of course, Bomber still has potential to do a little bit of economic damage because he does have access to that Medevac. And we know how important Medevacs can be. The Banshee is not out yet. The Widowmine is not out yet. This SUV will get picked off, I think. With the Hellions, I think Cure will be okay.
Yeah, this is interesting that he moved his SCV up there as if to expand, but still has yet to start his command center. Bomber, in the meantime, says, well, I'm just going to expand so much faster than you. I'm going to even go for a 3rd command center, because why not?
We saw him play mech earlier this day against Bolt on Nimbus. There is of course a chance that he's going to do this once more, but this time it's cross map, which I feel is a little bit better for the bio player. That is of course if Cure decides to play bio.
Yeah, I think when you look at bio versus mech, it's mostly interesting in my eyes because Bomber is a self-professed bio player. I've talked to him about this. We had a lot of chance to spend time with him. He's like, most players don't expect me to go mech, so I throw it out every once in a while, but it's not my favorite way to play. And I think against Polt, one of the reasons you have a lot of success is Polt was definitely not expecting to play versus a meching Bomber. So I think it opens up a couple of interesting options. This late Banshee,
yeah.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned it, Roddy. It's like, well, it's coming so late. There's no way he'd actually still do it.
Exactly. Often people just give up on this strategy when it gets disrupted as much as Bomber disrupted this Banshee build. Cloak is activated and deactivated immediately, but that's nice for Cure. Catches a little bit of a break. That early game scenario didn't really play out the way he had in mind, but now he's still 5 workers ahead. Of course, Bomber has another command center that's about to finish up a little bit before the one of Cure.
Yeah, and so, I mean, all the mid-game steps make a lot of sense. And, we actually are going to have Bomber once again go for a mech build. It seems he's found a comfortable place on this map, and I have to say, after the way that he used the Hellbat Medivac heavy mobile force to deter attacks as well as make his pushes work, I actually really like it. Bomber, as a veteran player, there's something about this map that he just really seems to like.
Oh man, these Banshees are really going to town. Bomber, where are your missile turrets? You really should have had a few. Of course, there is a Raven, but these Banshees are getting way more damage done than I think Cure could have even hoped for, especially because it was delayed so much. He has lost 11 SCVs. It's not detrimental because he is working, of course, of 3 orbital commands, but it's still a few more SCVs than Bomber should have lost over there.
Yeah, Cure was able to get in and deal a little bit of damage. He has yet to see the armory or the second factory, so you can't be 100% sure that Bomber is going for, you know, a mech style, but
he did see that game that he played against Paul,
yes,
of course, so it is in the back of his mind. Now this Widowmine is definitely going to see these Hellions. That is a very juicy shot. Of course, these Hellions are trying to get some splash damage on these
Those
Marines.
Marines are lined up really nicely.
Yeah, but with the tank and the Banshee, it's just a risky move. Bomber knows what happened in that previous game, and I think he also is aware of the fact that he got away pretty good in that phase in the game where Paul decided to back off with those tanks. So I think this time Bomber is going to try to complicate that just a little bit.
Yeah, the thing is, there are some players in the history of StarCraft that, you know, when you look for basic things, you can defend really well with Mass Hellion. And I love this Raven harass Cure. Cure's like, I found my Raven I left in that match against Polt. He's back.
The Commander Raven.
He wants to become the little Raven that could once again.
Another Cloak Banshee is going to fly into the main base. The Raven from Bomber is a little bit out of position. Bomber does have a lot of energy on this Raven, like I said before, so you could potentially drop 2 Seeker missiles on these tanks if Cure decides to go for it. And of course, Cure is going to have to babysit his tanks because Bomber will be able to produce way more of those than he is.
Yeah, I like this for the soft contain. This is not enough of a force to actually kill this army head-to-head of Bomber, especially without stim. But what it's going to do is hold him away and say, you can't move down this ramp without eating tank fire.
And of course, during all this, Cure is comfortably going up to 3 bases as well. His orbital has just completed, and he's slowly but steady starting to saturate that mineral line. So
Bomber's like, I want my third.
Yep. No more economic advantage for Bomber. He's going to pick up those 8 Hellbats once more.
Oh my goodness, the auto turrets, man. You know, this would have been a really sick play if he moves the Medivacs in from behind and then drops on the tanks as he rolls down his ramp.
I mean, this
but
is
now
basically...
it's a really awkward spot because he kind of knows that the Medivacs are out there.
Taking a look at the main base of Cure, there are not too many units, and a couple of those units are just moving across the map now as well. Cure has to be careful of that. He saw those Medivacs. He can...
Yeah, his Medivac saw them again, so he knows, and Bomber will have to hang back just a little bit longer, and he reinforced this contain. He's really delaying the third. You need that third base gas when you're playing mech. You can't win without this the 4th and 6th refinery.
Nimbus is still such a large map, though, that by the time that these reinforcements arrive, he still has less units than Bomber has. This is where it went wrong for Paul. Bomber's gonna go for it.
Good splits on the Marines so far, but there's still a lot of firepower. The auto turrets also giving a lot of extra force with Bomber's army, and now the meching player ahead in supply is always a good position because those bio units build quickly. You know, Cure will have another army ready to fight within the next minute or two. Bomber still doesn't have quite the force you can really make a big push with without at least exposing yourself quite heavily to counterattacks. But one thing Bomber's done a really good job of with this style is focusing on his upgrades. His +2 attack is on the way for his tanks, and I can't stress enough, once you have +1 attack, it only takes this one less volley for your tanks to kill the other ones. And when you get that armor, it negates that first attack. So really having the +2 quickly just sets himself up so well for these siege wars.
I think it's very important for Cure to keep Bomber on his side of the map. The last thing you want is just to give freedom to a meching player, because if that army starts knocking on your front door, it's going to be very hard to break it. So having control of this Xel'Naga Watchtower, just having the potential trap of those medevacs flying around, that is exactly what Cure needs.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Bomber doesn't have a lot of pressure on him. He cleaned up one army pretty nicely. And another important thing as this force gets moved away is because he keeps his army at home, Mech is almost always going to trade much more cost effectively than Bio in a defensive position. If you charge in on those tanks, Hellbats will rain all over you. And Marauders, they're not light units, but when they're clumped up enough, you know, Banelings, Hellbats, they all do well.
Economically, it's still very even while we see both players dropping their forward command center pretty much at the exact same time. Bomber sees this little army moving in as well. He's actually forced to cancel his port base. He's going to try, of course, to intercept these reinforcements, but Cure will be able to get out of there. That is nice. Those small victories, that's what you need as a bio player. You just need a lot of small victories against Mech to eventually make the power go away.
Yeah, and this army is almost at full power, Rotterdam. A lot of Hellbats for Bomber. This is very tanky. He's actually just going to go in and fight this. Those Marauders take quite a few hits. The siege tanks on the high ground without upgrades, not really effective against the forces of Bomber.
Cure lost
this is a great
there.
position.
Cure lost a lot. Look at the units lost resource tab, 6,000 against 3,400 now. There was only 1,000 difference before this fight. Of course, it's still such a large map, which worked against Cure first, but after losing a fight, it works for him. Because especially with that mech army being as slow as it is, he will always have time to bounce back and swing around and, you know, try to keep Bomber on his side of the map. But Bomber is going to go for it. He's close to being maxed out. He probably left quite a few units at home as well. +2 has finished up for his mech units as well. +2 is not ready yet for these bio units. Cure is going to have to be very careful, and he's going to have to think very hard about his upcoming choices.
Yeah, this is a really tough spot. Trying to defend in this position, there's no switch to air coming. The siege tanks for Cure don't have +2 attack, so they're still less effective than Bomber's tanks in a straight-up fight. And now the Hellbats rain in. Yeah, you can run, but now the tanks are at your base.
Oh, these Hellbats doing so much damage. Of course, there is a Marauder hit squad coming in from behind. Those are definitely doing a lot of damage to the tanks, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Bomber has
too much
so
from
many
Bomber.
units.
There's just too much. These Hellbats are being dropped all over this army. Bomber's taking 100 supply lead and still has command centers for days back home.
Bomber is meching like a champ. He's
mule.
throwing down the mules.